Oh my goodness sakes. I just realized that I've been muted this whole time and I apologize. So let me go back and we'll start again. Thank you to my producer for letting me know. All right. Hello and thank you for joining me. I do want to introduce myself so you all can hear this time. My name is Quinn Dickinson and I have worked for the Department of Revenue for 19 years. The first 15 years, I worked as an auditor. I audited businesses of all sizes and in a variety of industries. Now, I am the agency's education coordinator. Part of my job as the education coordinator is to speak with groups to demystify taxes and the Department of Revenue. Today, we will talk about excise taxes in general and then dig into some specific tax classifications that are likely to apply to your business. I will briefly explain how and when to report and pay those taxes on your excise tax returns. We will discuss personal property tax and unclaimed property as well. And then I will direct you to some resources available to help you report your income correctly. My goal for this presentation is to provide you with basic excise tax information so you know what to report and when. I will also point you to resources available on the Department of Revenue website. And I am happy to answer your questions. Your questions will be compiled and sent to me towards the end of the presentation, and I will answer as many as we have time for. The Department of Revenue is the state agency that collects business taxes. The taxes we collect are used to fund state government services, including state parks, public services, and education. We are not the IRS who collects federal income taxes from businesses and individuals. These federal income taxes are used to fund federal public services, including the military and national parks. As taxpayers, by law, you have certain rights and responsibilities. Our website has a complete list of your taxpayer rights and responsibilities. I want to highlight a few of each. You have a right to written explanations of tax assessments, interest, and penalties when they are issued. You have a right to clear and current tax instructions and information, and a right to expect that you can rely on the written advice and reporting instructions provided by the department. You have a right to have the confidentiality of your financial and business information maintained. You are responsible to know and stay updated on your reporting obligations. You are responsible to keep accurate and complete business records. You are responsible to file your returns and pay your taxes on time. So what do these rights and responsibilities look like? Your right to clear and current tax information and your responsibility to know your tax reporting obligations go hand in hand. The department works hard to keep our website updated and provide specific updates to affected taxpayers. How you report and how your account is set up will determine what information you receive from us. For instance, information is often sent based on industry code, tax classifications reported, deductions claimed, or locations reported for retail sales tax. However, our system for alerting taxpayers to tax law changes is not perfect, so you are still expected to make sure you have the most current information. You can do so by checking our website regularly and subscribing to email notifications. To begin, I want to talk about the four main excise tax types in general. I'm going to discuss these tax types broadly here, and we will talk more specifically about each of them later in the presentation. Please note, for the remainder of the presentation, I will refer to business and occupation tax as B&O tax. B&O tax is a tax on the act of engaging in business. There are more than 50 B&O tax classifications with varying tax rates. The classification you report under is based on the business activity you perform. Today, I will discuss retailing, wholesaling, manufacturing, and service and other activities B&O taxes. B&O tax is a pyramiding tax, meaning that every transaction is subject to tax. One item can be subject to tax multiple times, at each stage in the process from manufacturing to the sale to the end consumer. Let's look at a 2x4 piece of wood as an example. When the tree is cut down, extracting B&O tax is due on the value of the tree. When the tree is manufactured into lumber, then manufacturing B&O tax is due on the value of the lumber. When the 2x4 is sold to the lumber yard, wholesaling B&O tax is due on the sales price of the 2x4. And when the 2x4 is sold to the customer by the lumber yard, retailing B&O tax is due on the sales price to the customer. This same piece of wood has been subject to B&O tax 4 times. Public utility tax is a tax on public service businesses. There are several public utility tax classifications, each with a different tax rate. The classification you report under is based on the public service you provide. Today, I will discuss motor and urban transportation public utility taxes. Unlike B&O tax, public utility tax is not pyramiding. It is due on income from public services only once. If two entities provide a public service jointly, they each pay tax on only their portion of the gross receipts from providing the public service business. For instance, let's say that City G pays PUD 1 to distribute water to some of City G's residents. City G collects all of the income for water service for all of its residents and reports that amount on the excise tax returns. City G can then take a deduction for the amount they paid PUD 1, so they report only on their portion of the income from providing water to their residents. PUD 1 will then report the amount they received from City G on their excise tax return. The total income from providing water service to City G's residents is taxed only one time. We will also discuss retail sales tax and use tax. Retail sales tax is due on most retail sales and must be collected by the seller and submitted with the excise tax return. Whenever you purchase items to use rather than resell, then you must pay retail sales tax to your vendor or use tax with your excise tax return. There are some exceptions, and we will talk about a few of those exceptions later in the presentation. Last but not least, I will provide a high-level overview of personal property tax. This tax is paid by businesses on the value of assets used in the business, not apply to inventory held for sale. Throughout this presentation, I will refer to some records or documents you will need to keep in the event you are ever audited by the Department of Revenue. You are expected to keep copies of your business records for 5 years. The records you need to keep include anything you use to file your excise tax returns, especially your income records, documentation required for deductions, and purchase invoices. These records can be kept electronically, including scanned copies of documents. And I do want to make a quick tip that for purchase invoices or receipts that might be printed on thermal paper, to definitely take a photocopy or scan a copy of those because that thermal paper will fade over time. So in 5 years, you might not be able to read those receipts very well. As we discussed previously, the state of Washington does not have an income tax. Instead, businesses pay B&O tax to help fund our state government services. The B&O tax is the tax levied on businesses for the act of engaging in business. It is a transaction-based tax, and the classification you report is determined by the type of business you conduct. The B&O tax is due on your gross sales income, less some available deductions that we'll discuss later. There are more than 50 different tax classifications with varying tax rates. No deduction is allowed for labor, materials, taxes, or other costs of doing business. As I mentioned before, the taxes you report to the Department of Revenue are different from the taxes you report to the IRS. In Washington, businesses report based on gross income rather than net income. The amount you report on your excise tax returns is the gross amount you charge your customers for your products and services. This amount includes charges for shipping, delivery, and installation. You may not deduct your costs of doing business, such as your costs for materials, labor, or utilities. Our most common B&O tax classification is retailing. The retailing tax classification covers sales of goods and retail services sold to end consumers. For example, when the hardware store sells me a hammer, it is a retail sale because I am the end user of that hammer. Generally, a retail service is a service that acts upon real or personal property. Examples of retail services include construction, landscaping and lawn maintenance, and photography. Retailing B&O is also due on sales of digital goods, such as movies and music, and digitally automated services, such as online multiplayer games. The wholesaling tax classification applies to sales of goods or services that are later resold without intervening use. These are sales to resellers. For example, when the MC Hammer Company sells hammers to the hardware store, it is a wholesale sale because the hardware store then resells the hammers to its customers. Wholesalers must obtain a reseller permit from their customers in order for the sale to be considered a wholesale sale. Without a reseller permit, the sale is considered to be a retail sale. You must keep copies of the reseller permits provided by your customers for 5 years. Speaking of reseller permits, here is an example of one. Reseller permits are issued by the Department of Revenue to businesses who apply for the permit and meet the qualifying criteria. The application is free and available through our online portal, MyDOR. Reseller permits are usually valid for 4 years. Your permit may be limited to 2 years if you are a contractor, or your business has been open for less than 12 months, or your business has not reported income in the last 12 months. If you purchase goods or services for resale in your business, you should provide your vendor with your reseller permit so that they do not collect retail sales tax from you. You may only use your reseller permit to purchase goods or services that you resell without intervening use. Using your reseller permit to purchase other items or services could result in a penalty. Manufacturing is defined as making a new, different, or more useful product. An example of manufacturing is the making of hammers at the MC Hammer Company factory. Manufacturing B&O tax is due on the gross income from sales of the manufactured product. It is due on the products you manufacture in Washington. Tax is also due under either the wholesaling or retailing tax classification, depending on the nature of the sale. However, a multiple activities tax credit is available to make sure that the tax is paid only once on the sale of the product by the manufacturer. More information about manufacturing and the credit are available on our website. The service and other activities tax classification is the catch-all for any activities that are not taxable under any other tax classification. Some examples of activities taxable under this classification include the services provided by doctors, lawyers, and beauticians. Starting in April of this year, the service and other activities B&O tax has two tax rates. The rate you pay is based on your total income subject to service and other activities B&O tax in the previous year. If your business or affiliate group reported more than $1 million of taxable income under the service and other activities tax classification in the previous year, then you pay at the higher rate of 1.75%. If your business or affiliate group reported less than $1 million of taxable income under the service and other activities tax classification in the previous year, then you pay at the lower rate of 1.5%. There are some deductions available, though they are not the same as income tax deductions. Some deductions are available for B&O tax, some are available for sales tax, and some are available for both. The most often claimed B&O tax deductions are listed on the slide. I will mention each deduction here listed here briefly, along with the documentation you should keep in order to validate the deduction should you ever be audited. Bad debts is a deduction for amounts previously reported without receiving payment, and you later determine that payment will not be received. The documentation you need would be the original sales invoice, You need to be able to show when it was originally reported on the excise tax return and when the bad debt was written off. Casual sales is a tax deduction for B&O tax only. Casual sales are sales of items outside the normal course of business. This deduction is available for B&O only, though you are required to collect retail sales tax where appropriate. For instance, if you are a dentist and you sell the TV from your waiting room, you would collect the retail sales tax from the buyer and submit it with your excise tax return. But you would not be expected to pay B&O tax on the sale of the TV since it is outside your normal business activities. For interstate and foreign sales, goods sold and delivered to customers outside of Washington are not subject to tax in Washington. Documentation required for the deduction includes the sales invoice and the shipping document. Returns and allowances. The returns and allowances deduction is available anytime a sale is reported and then later refunded to the customer. Documentation you would need would be the original sales invoice. You need to be able to show when the original sale was reported and the return slip or credit memo issued to your customer when you process their return. I also want to highlight one B&O tax credit that you may qualify for. The small business credit is available for B&O tax. The amount of credit is based on the total tax due. If you file your returns online and qualify for the credit is calculated and subtracted from the total tax due automatically. So now we're going to shift gears from B&O tax to public utility tax. The public utility tax is a tax on public service businesses. This tax is paid instead of B&O tax. Public service businesses include those that provide energy, water, and sewer services. They also include businesses who transport people and goods for hire, which I will discuss in detail here. Hauling for hire includes hauling goods as well as transporting people. There are two classifications of transportation public utilities, and the classification you report is based on the transportation distance. Urban transportation is the hauling of goods or people where the start and end of the haul are within a city's limits or within 5 miles of the city limits of the start or end of the haul, or within 5 miles of the city limits of any two cities that are no more than 5 miles apart. These distances are not measured in road miles, but using a straight line or as the crow flies. The motor transportation classification applies to all hauls that do not qualify as urban transportation hauls. And I do want to point out here that you are not required to separate out your hauls between urban and motor transportation. The motor transportation tax classification is a higher rate, and so you are absolutely allowed to report all of your hauls under the motor transportation rate if that is what you choose to do. If you want to report your shorter hauls, your urban transportation hauls under the urban transportation tax classification, then you will need to keep records to show where those hauls start and end so that they can be verified in the event of an audit. So let's go over an example. Let's say you start your haul inside Olympia city limits. If your haul ends inside Olympia city limits, then the income is subject to tax under the urban transportation classification because the haul begins and ends within the same city limits. If your haul ends inside Tumwater city limits, then the income is subject to tax under the urban transportation classification because the haul ends in the city limits of a neighboring city where the limits of both cities are within 5 miles of each other. And for those who are not familiar, Olympia and Tumwater's city limits are right next to each other. If your haul ends in unincorporated Thurston County, which is where Olympia is located, but within 5 miles of the city limits of Olympia, then the haul qualifies for the urban transportation tax classification. However, if your haul ends in Vancouver, Washington, then the haul does not qualify for the urban transportation tax classification. The income from this haul must be reported under the motor transportation tax classification. We have a lookup tool on our website to help you determine what tax classification to report for each of your hauls. You simply enter the beginning and ending addresses, and the website will tell you if the haul qualifies as urban transportation or motor transportation. Unlike the B&O tax, the public utility tax is not pyramiding. Public utility tax is paid only once on the services provided to customers. If you pay another public service business to provide a portion of the service to your customers, then you may deduct the amount you pay to the other business. So, as an example, if you have a haul from Olympia to Vancouver and you don't want to have your driver drive the entire route, you might have them drive it to Midway and then pass the goods on to another company and ask them to, and you pay them, the other company, to finish the haul for you, you would be able to deduct the amount that you paid that other company. All right, so we've talked about B&O tax and we've talked about public utility tax. And so now we're going to talk about a tax that we should all be familiar with because we all pay it, I hope. the retail sales tax. So retail sales tax is paid by the customer to the seller, who holds that money in trust until they file their excise tax return. At that time, the sales tax is paid to the state. Retail sales tax is collected on most sales that are subject to retailing B&O tax. The state retail sales tax rate is 6.5%. Local jurisdictions add a local sales tax to fund their local government programs. The local rates vary from 0.5% to 4%. As a seller, you are liable for payment of the sales tax even if you fail to collect it or collect it at the wrong rate. In addition, if sales tax is collected at a higher rate than what is due, the total sales tax you collect is due to the state. As an example, if the local sales tax rate is 8% and you collect only 6.5%, then you must still pay the total 8% to the state. If you collect 9.5% sales tax, then you must pay the entire 9.5% to the state. In addition to sales of tangible personal property and retail services, other purchases subject to sales tax include gym memberships, tanning and tattooing, lodging for less than 30 days, telephone service, parking, and title insurance and escrow services. So, how do you know what sales tax rate to charge your customers? There are 3 rules to help you figure it out. For sales of goods, the local rate is based on where the customer receives the goods. For sales of hammers at the hardware store, it is the location of the hardware store. For sales of drywall that is delivered to the customer's home, it is the location of the customer's home. For sales of labor, such as construction or maintenance, it is the location where the construction is performed or the address of the job site. For rentals of goods with a single payment, it is the location where the customer picks up the rental item. For rentals with multiple payments, the first payment is taxed at the location where the rental item is picked up, with the rest of the payments taxed at the location where the rental item is used. Since local governments rely on sales tax collections to fund their programs, it is important to collect the correct sales tax rate and report it to the right location. To assist you with this effort, we have many tools available on our website to determine correct sales tax rates. You can enter an address and find out the specific tax rate for that location. You can also use a map search or enter longitude and latitude coordinates, and you will also get a result for that specific location. We offer a mobile app for businesses to find sales tax rates when they are away from their office and their computer. Our website also lists sales tax rates alphabetically by city and county, by cities grouped by county, and in Excel or QuickBooks file formats. And I just want to take a quick moment to give another plug for our mobile app. It is becoming more and more popular, and I totally understand why. It is a fantastic app. It is free to download, and it is also free of advertisements when you're using the app. So that is a great feature. And It uses the GPS of your mobile device to determine the sales tax rate for the location where the mobile device is. When you search for a location when you're out and about, it will keep track of it will store the locations that you have searched for. And so when you go back to your office or you're getting ready to file your excise tax return at the end of the month, then you can go back into the app and see all of the different locations where you have searched for a tax rate. And also you can upload that information into an Excel file. So it offers a lot of features that make it easier for you to collect and submit the correct sales tax. As I mentioned before, there are some deductions available, and some are available for B&O tax, some are available for sales tax, and some are available for both. The most often claimed sales tax deductions are listed on this slide. You will notice that interstate and foreign sales is listed again. This deduction is available for both B&O tax and retail sales tax. The rest of the deductions listed here are available for retail sales tax only. I will mention each deduction here listed here briefly, along with the documentation you should keep in order to validate the deduction in case you're ever audited. So as a reminder, for interstate and foreign sales, those sales are goods sold and delivered to customers outside of Washington and are not subject to sales tax in Washington. The documentation you would need to keep would be the sales invoice and the shipping document. Retail sales tax collected by facilitator. This deduction is used by marketplace sellers where a marketplace facilitator collects and pays Washington sales tax on your behalf. You need to have proof the facilitator is collecting sales tax on your behalf, and that is usually in your contract with the marketplace facilitator. Marketplace facilitators are required to provide you with gross sales information for all Washington sales, which you can use to calculate your B&O tax and any other applicable taxes. Sales to enrolled tribal members with delivery on the reservation. Sales delivered on Indian reservations or trust lands to an enrolled member of that tribe are not subject to sales tax. It is important to make sure that you are delivering the item to the reservation or trust land of the tribe your customer is a member of. For example, if your customer is a member of the Puyallup tribe, you must deliver the item to them on the Puyallup reservation or trust lands, regardless of where your customer may live. The documentation you would need would be the sales invoice, a copy of the tribal membership document, and a completed tribal exemption form found on our website. And if you're not sure if the location where you are delivering your goods to is on the reservation or tribal trust lands, you can use our sales tax lookup feature on our website, and it will tell you if that location is inside Indian country, and if so, what tribe. So great information there. Sales to U.S. government. The United States government is not required to pay sales tax. The deduction for sales to U.S. government is for sales made to the U.S. government itself. It does not include sales to government employees or other government jurisdictions such as the state of Washington or local counties or cities. The documentation you need for this deduction is the original sales invoice and proof that the payment came from the United States government, such as a copy of the check or the credit card number. Taxable amount for tax paid at source. If you purchase items for resale and paid sales tax to the vendor in error, you can claim a deduction from retail sales tax to recover that sales tax you paid. The documentation you would need would be the purchase invoice. We have discussed when you need to collect retail sales tax, but what about when you need to pay retail sales tax? You need to pay sales tax on all products and retail services you consume. You are considered the consumer of any item or retail service you use up while operating your business that you do not incorporate into another good you sell. You may not use your reseller permit to purchase these items because you are not reselling them. For instance, cleaning supplies are not items you resell unless you operate a janitorial supply company. So, assuming you do not resell cleaning supplies, you must pay sales tax when you purchase them. So what happens if you didn't pay sales tax on an item or retail service you used? Use tax is a companion to retail sales tax. Use tax is due when retail sales tax should have been paid, but was not. For instance, when you purchase items online from out-of-state vendors who do not charge retail sales tax, use tax is due when that item is first used in Washington. Use tax is reported on your excise tax return. The tax rate is the same as the retail sales tax rate for the location where the item is first used. You can use the tax rate lookup tool on our website to find the appropriate tax rate to report. The amount subject to tax is the total purchase price of the item, including any charges for delivery or installation. Some examples of items you might need to report use tax on include items purchased online, items purchased outside Washington, such as in Oregon and brought back to Washington, and digital goods and services. You must pay either retail sales tax or use tax on all assets not used in manufacturing and consumable supplies, such as office supplies. I just want to touch on that for a minute. I did mention assets not used in manufacturing. So there is a sales tax exemption for machinery and equipment used in a manufacturing operation. And if you think that might apply to you, there is more information available on our website. And also, I want to point out too that if you, let's say you are a janitorial supply company and you sell janitorial supplies, if you remove something from inventory, say you take a bottle of Windex, I shouldn't use brand names, but I can't think of anything else. Glass cleaner. Take a bottle of glass cleaner off your shelf to clean the windows and doors in your store. You would need to pay use tax and report that on your excise tax return because you didn't pay sales tax when you bought it because you were planning to resell it. But now that you're using it, you need to report and pay use tax on the value of that glass cleaner. Litter tax is imposed on those industries whose products are reasonably related to the litter problem. The litter tax applies to sales made within this state. It is due in addition to any other taxes. Litter tax is not collected from the buyer, but is paid by the business. The taxes are deposited into the Waste Reduction, Recycling, and Litter Control account and used by the Department of Ecology for highway cleanup programs. Litter tax is paid by manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers of 13 categories of products. Some of the categories were combined in the list shown here so that they would fit on the slide. The 13 categories are food for human or pet consumption, groceries, cigarettes and tobacco products, soft drinks and carbonated beverages, beer and other malt beverages, wine, newspapers and magazines, household paper and paper products, glass containers, metal containers, plastic or fiber containers, cleaning agents and toiletries, and non-drug drugstore sundry items. An example of that would be diapers. So when do you need to file your tax returns? You need to file either monthly, quarterly, or annually. This frequency is assigned to you when you register your business with the Department of Revenue. Your filing frequency is determined by the amount of tax you pay, or if you haven't filed any returns yet because you're a new business, it is based on the amount we estimate you will be required to pay. And your frequency can change throughout the course of your business as you maybe are required to pay more or less tax on your tax returns. The frequencies are reviewed on an annual basis. You can find out what your filing frequency is in a few ways. When you registered your business, you should have received a welcome letter from the Department of Revenue. Your filing frequency is listed on that letter. If you no longer have that letter, you can check your account online on MyDOR to see when your next tax return is due. Or you can always call our telephone information center and one of our agents will be happy to assist you. On the slide, you can see when tax returns are usually due. For monthly filers, it would be due the 25th day of the following month. The March return is due April 25th. For quarterly filers, it would be the last day of the month following the end of the quarter. So the quarter one return for January through March is due April 30th. And new this year, annual returns are due on April 15th of the following year. If the due date falls on a weekend or state holiday, then the due date is moved to the next business day. You can request a change to your filing frequency by calling us or sending a message through My DOR. Electronic filing is now required for monthly and quarterly filers with limited exceptions. And I highly recommend electronic filing for annual filers as well. The My DOR system is customizable for your business activity and calculates the taxes due, including some credits available, like the small business credit I talked about earlier. You have several payment options available through My DOR, including electronic funds transfer directly from your bank to our bank and credit card. Please note that payment by credit card includes a small fee in addition to the taxes due, and this fee is charged by the third-party credit card processor. It is not assessed by the department. On your account page is an action items tab that includes all of the various tasks you might need to complete for your accounts. If we send you letters or messages, they will be listed here. We send important information to you this way, so please make sure to read those letters and messages. We have more information about My DOR, including step-by-step instructions, on our website. An excise tax audit is a routine procedure to verify that you have filed your tax returns correctly. Being selected for an audit does not mean that you have done anything wrong. Auditors review your business records to verify that the total taxable income has been reported and that it has been reported under the correct tax classifications. They will verify that retail sales tax or use tax has been paid on purchases of supplies and assets where appropriate. Auditors also review any deductions or credits claimed on the tax returns. The audit review covers a period of up to 5 years with limited exceptions. So that's why we tell you to keep 5 years of records. The goal of the audit is to correct any reporting errors and provide guidance to report taxes properly in the future. So I did mention that we would talk very briefly about personal property tax. It is similar to real property tax, except that the tax is due on tangible property rather than real property. The primary characteristic of personal property is its mobility. It can include machinery, equipment, supplies, and furniture. It does not include inventory held for sale. And only business property is subject to personal property tax. Items you own as an individual separate from your business are exempt. Personal property tax is administered by your county assessor. The Department of Revenue oversees the personal property tax program statewide to make sure that the tax is applied consistently from county to county. You must provide a list to your county assessor of all of the business property you owned as of January 1st of each year. This list is due to the county assessor by April 30th. The list includes the date of purchase, the purchase price, and the type of property. The assessor will go through your list and assign a taxable value for each item listed based on current market value. Property tax is due on the total taxable value of all business property at the same rate as real property tax. The tax is due the following year, with half due on April 30th and the other half due on October 31st. And for more information, you can visit our website or contact your county assessor. Every state in the U.S. has an unclaimed property program aimed at connecting people with money they have forgotten about. Unclaimed property is money or intangible property owed to sorry, that is a mouthful. Unclaimed property is money or intangible property owed to an individual or business. Property is considered unclaimed after it is held for a period of time with no contact with the owner of the property. The unclaimed property is turned over to the Department of Revenue, and we return it to its owner. The most common forms of unclaimed property you might hold are uncashed payroll checks or deposits. You must file an unclaimed property report with the Department of Revenue by October 31st of each year. If you don't hold any unclaimed property, you report a negative or no property report. Our website provides additional information and a search feature so you can find out if you have any unclaimed property held by the state. If you do, the claims process is quite easy and you can expect to receive your property in 2 months. As I have mentioned, our website provides a wealth of information and resources to help you file your tax returns correctly every time. We have guides for common industries and easy to understand articles on a variety of tax topics. If you're still unsure, you can submit requests for specialized assistance. Binding tax rulings provide answers to your questions that are binding on both you and the department as long as the facts and the law remain the same. If you have multiple questions, you may benefit from the free tax consultation service provided by the department. To get started, you submit a questionnaire and then a tax consultant meets with you to learn about your business. They will provide you with written instructions so you know how to report your income going forward. You may also request a speaker to talk with your group about tax topics. This service is also free, though subject to the availability of our experts. If you are not able to find answers to your questions on our website, you can call our telephone information center or send us a chat message. We have agents available to answer your calls and chats between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Here, I have also provided my contact information should you have questions about excise tax reporting in the future. I am always happy to help. And I'm going to leave that up for just a minute, but we should have some questions to answer. So I'm going to advance our slide to the question slide. So I want to thank you again for joining me for this breakout session of the Biz Fair. It has been a pleasure to connect with you today, and we have about 15 minutes more, so I will answer any questions that come in. So, oh, we have a couple of good ones. So thank you for sending these in. Uh, we have a question, can you deduct tax paid on goods that you will resell? And um, yes, kind of. So I did mention under the sales retail sales tax classification, there is a deduction called taxable amount for tax paid at source. So if you pay tax on items that you resell, you can take a deduction for this the sales price of those items. So if you um, if you buy $100 worth of goods and your vendor charges you 9% sales tax, so you pay $109. Is that right? That sounds right. Okay, $109. Then you can take, and those are items that you resell. Then you can take a deduction for $100 because that's the taxable amount, and so from sales tax, and then that gets you that $9 back, kind of. So definitely you can do that. You can find more information about that deduction on our website. Public utility tax. What about people who drive for rideshare or rental car company or tow truck company? So yes, so people who drive for rideshare, those that's definitely subject to public utility tax, and so that would be either motor or urban transportation, depending on the 5 mile rules. So again, that's something where you can put that into the tax calculator, and it'll tell you the trip information, and it will tell you if it's motor or urban. For a tow truck companies usually there's some different. It depend. It kind of depends. I hate to say that, but generally tow truck operators, I want to say, and I hope I'm right here, are generally retail. And we have a whole bunch of information specifically about tow trucks on our website. And so I do encourage you to look into that. And I'm not sure about people who drive for a rental car company. That is a new one, a new question I've not seen or done any research on. So I apologize that I'm not sure how to answer that question or really what you're asking. So that would be a good one to call in or send in for a binding tax ruling, and we can really dig in and get you an answer. Oh, if I purchase a digital file, such as a font or graphic, for use on a client web design product and later charge them for that digital file, do I need a reseller's permit? So for purchases of items of digital goods that you are going to use in your business, there is a separate exemption form for that, and that is available on our website. If you go to our website and on the top in the blue banner, there are some tabs, and under forms and publications, there are you can find a list there of exemption forms, and there is a specific exemption form for that. You can also go to our website and search for digital goods, and there is a whole page, a lot of information available there to get more information about it. And can you say more about the interstate sales and the tax deduction? Sure. So when you make a sale of goods of goods to a customer that's located outside Washington, then no tax is due. There's no tax for B&O tax, and there's no tax for sales tax. So you would not need to collect sales tax from your customer, not Washington sales tax, and you would not owe B&O tax. However, we do want you to report that sale on your excise tax return because it helps us um, know what our business community is doing. What the economy is doing in Washington. So do report all of your sales, but if you have an item that you have shipped to a customer outside of Washington, then do take that deduction. If it was, say, $200 sale, you have $5,000 of total sales, and you have one sale that was $200 that you shipped to South Dakota, let's say, then you would take a deduction for both B&O tax and sales tax of $200. So you would only pay B&O tax and sales tax on $4,800 because that would be the difference. So there is a possibility that if you are selling a lot of goods and shipping them out of the state, that you might have a tax reporting obligation to another state. And so I do encourage you to look into the tax reporting requirements for other states, especially if you have a lot of sales to some states. Maybe you have a lot of sales to one state in particular. It would be a good idea to just double check and make sure you don't have a liability there that you don't know about. So, oh, let's see. We have another one here. How often do I update assets inventory to the county? So that is something that you would do every year. So you take inventory of all of your personal property, your assets, and take inventory as of January 1st. That does not mean you have to do it on January 1st. I don't want anyone to think they have to give up their New Year's holiday if they observe that to sit and do inventory, but it's everything that's in your inventory as of January 1st. And again, um, that's assets. That does not include inventory for sale. So just your assets and supplies and that kind of thing. Um, so you would make a list of all those things, and you need to send that list to your county assessor by April 1st, I think, or it's April 30th. I have to double check. Now I'm second guessing myself, but April. And for more questions about that, I do encourage you to contact your county assessor's office. They are going to be your best bet for answering questions about personal property tax in your county. And like I said, the Department of Revenue oversees the program statewide, and so your county assessor is going to be your best bet for questions about that. All right. Let me see. Can I use the reseller permit to purchase a car? Well, if you're going to resell the car without using it in between, then yes, you can use a reseller permit to purchase a car. However, if you're going to purchase a car to use in your business, then no, you would need to pay sales tax. It's only if you are going to purchase that car and not do anything with it and just resell it to a customer. That's when you would use your reseller permit. Okay. Does B&O tax apply to security guard services based on the catch-all then? I do believe that security guard services would be subject to service and other activities B&O tax. That's the catch-all category. I don't recall that security guard services are taxed under a different classification. I'm 98% sure that that is service and other activities. And so that would be the 1.5% or the 1.75% rate, depending on how much you reported under that tax classification in the previous year. If you're a new business, that means the lower rate because you reported zero under that tax classification last year. So, and so you would only pay that higher rate if you had more than $1 million in taxable income under service and other activities B&O tax in the previous year. Oh, these are good questions. Thank you for sending these in. Okay, let me read this real fast. Oh, B&O tax. Oh, this is a really good question, and I'm glad you brought this up. B&O tax are paid on gross retail sales that include retail sales tax. And the answer is no. You don't want to include your retail sales tax in the gross amount you report because this person says that means I'd pay B&O tax on the sales tax that I'm holding on to. And you're right. And you don't owe B&O tax on that sales tax. It's not your money. It's that is what you're holding in trust for the state. So if you have I'm going to use $100 again, $100 of sales, and it's 9% sales tax. You collected $9 in sales tax, then you would report on your excise tax return for retailing and retail sales tax classifications. You would report $100. And so you would not include that $9 of sales tax that you collected. You would only report that $100. And so B&O tax is due on the $100, and then sales tax is due on that $100. You collected that piece. That's how the math works out on the excise tax return. So when you report that $100, it does the calculation and you end up paying that $9. It shows that you owe $9 in sales tax between the state portion and the local portion. And so you've already collected that, so you're covered there. And then you would just pay the B&O tax on the sales, unless of course you qualify for the small business credit, and then maybe you don't owe any B&O tax at all. So again, the B&O tax credit depends on how much B&O tax you owe. And if you do file online, which I hope you will, it'll figure it out for you. It's great. You don't even have to worry about remembering it or not. It'll just do it for you. So it's great. Great question. I'm so glad you asked that because that is often a concern for especially new businesses who are new to reporting excise taxes. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, what would I do for B&O tax if I have an online nutrition consultation business with clients both in and outside of Washington? Oh, that is a great question too. So if you have this sounds like a business that would be subject to B&O tax under the service and other activities tax classification, and income that is taxable there is apportionable. And so there is a calculation that you would need to do. You would need to double check and make sure you qualify for apportionment. And then there's I can talk. I can do this. A calculation you would need to do to figure out what percentage of your income would be subject to tax in Washington. There is more information on our website, and we have an industry guide specifically for apportionment. And if you put that in the search bar, you can, if you search for apportionment, you will find out more information. Or on the education tab, there is an option for industry guides, and they're there in alphabetical order. And you click the link for apportionment, and you will find that information there. Great question. Um, if we are a bakery, how do we handle charging for deliveries if our baked goods are not taxed? Oh, okay. So if you have baked goods that are not taxed, like, like loaves of bread, um, then you your delivery charge would be subject to, you would report that as part of your gross income. So if you had, you know, $200 of sales of baked goods and a $20 delivery charge, you would report $220 under probably retail or wholesale. I don't know who you're selling to, but you would report that under on your tax return. And then if it's for resale or if it's a retail sale, then you would just deduct the whole amount under retailing or retail sales tax because I assume it qualifies for a deduction as an exempt food. So the entire amount would be exempt from sales tax, I do believe. Um, so I don't think we charge tax on delivery fees if the item that you're selling isn't subject to tax, but it might be a good one to call in and just make sure. Because I'm now second guessing myself. I apologize for that. Okay, what is the difference between a reseller permit and a dealership license? Okay, I believe this is an auto dealership that's asking this question. And a reseller permit is issued by the Department of Revenue. That is something that you give to your vendors so that they know that you're intending to resell the product they're selling to you, and so then they don't charge you sales tax. A dealership license is issued by Department of Licensing, and I'm not exactly sure what all goes into that piece because I am not familiar with Department of Licensing rules and regulations. Um, so, um, so yeah, they are different. They're issued by different agencies, and but the reseller permit is the piece that you need to give to your vendors so that they don't charge you sales tax on items that you are reselling. Is there a disability owner exempt tax? And I am not exactly sure what this person is asking about. If it's related to sales tax and B&O tax, there is not an exemption for a business owner that has a disability that I know of. That would be a new one for me. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just not one that I know of. If we're talking about property tax, there are some other exemptions, and there might be one for that, and that's something where you would want to contact your county assessor. Definitely, you could look it up on our website. We do have a page. We have a whole set of information for property tax. That if that's what you're asking about, that might be a possibility. But as far as I know, for B&O tax and sales tax and public utility tax, there is no exemption for business owners that have a disability. Um, Last question. Yes, because we are almost out of time. Does B&O tax include what we charge customers for shipping, even if that price is exactly what we pay our shipping vendor? And yes, whatever you charge your customer for shipping, even if you don't mark it up, even if you give a discount, um, that is what that would be part of what you report on your excise tax return. So great questions, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining me. We're at 3:15, and I want to be respectful of your time. And so I hope that you're enjoying the Biz Fair and that your next session is helpful for you. And I hope this one was as well. Thank you so much, everyone.